What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about Iran and that airstrike that recently just happened. If you're not familiar, since that airstrike happened, there's been a pretty dramatic increase in the price of oil. So this is raising a big question, and that is the price of oil going to continue increasing, and is it going to be something that you want to take advantage of? So we're going to take a dive into this and really talk more about it. What we're going to do is we're going to look at some of the main exporters of oil and see which countries have some of the biggest oil reserves. Because if in fact this airstrike leads to further escalation and the United States does happen to get involved in Iran, this could cause a slowdown in the amount of supply for oil, which could in fact increase the prices. And if we take a look at some of these numbers, we might come out with some very interesting findings. So let's take a look. So what we're taking a look at here are going to be the top 10 exporters of oil. Number 1 being Saudi Arabia, 2 Russia, 3 Iraq, 4 Canada, 5 United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Iran, United States as number 8, Nigeria as number 9, and 10 Kazakhstan. So what we're looking at here is really cool. It's a heat map of some of the biggest exporters and importers of oil. And of course, you can see some of the biggest exporters are Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran, Canada, and some of the biggest importers, of course, are China, United States, India, South Korea. So again, it's a really big, important turning point to finally see the United States becoming bigger in some of their exports than imports. So what we have here is just a really cool heat map of all the biggest exporters and importers of oil. So you can see some of the biggest exporters are going to be Saudi Arabia and Canada. Down here, some of the biggest importers are China and the United States. So again, this is just a really cool overview to kind of keep a look at some of the biggest importers and exporters of oil. Now what we're looking at is a list of the top 5 countries that produce oil currently. Number 1 is the United States, 2 Saudi Arabia, 3 Russia, 4 Canada, and 5 China. Saudi Arabia used to be first when it came to oil production, but now the United States has taken first place, and that is really all thanks to the way we mine or drill for oil these days. Basically a process called fracking. You can feel free to look that up. I'll also leave a link in the description below if you'd like to learn more about it. So what we're going to do now, guys, we're going to take a look at a couple different charts. For one, we're going to take a look at the oil chart, which is on my screen. Then we're going to be taking a look at the US dollar. And then what we're going to be doing is really mapping out and looking at history. What the price of oil and what the price of the dollar have done over the course of the past 20 years. And then we are going to align that with big economic and political changes that have happened over the course of that time frame. So what we're looking at here is a 20-year chart on the price of oil. This yellow arrow represents when we went to the Iraq War and invaded in 2003. As you can see, the price of oil flew. This arrow down represents the time at which the United States entered into the 2008 housing crisis, recession, Great Recession. This arrow represents the bounce in oil that occurred as the markets bottomed out in 2008 and into 2009. What you need to understand is there is a big correlation between the US dollar and the price of oil. This yellow arrow represents the time at which the United States went to war with Iraq. This yellow arrow basically represents the time at which the United States market bottomed out in 2008 and we finally started to rebound. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this chart and I'm going to drag it down. You will then see the chart of oil behind it. Remember this run up in oil from 2003 all the way up to 2007. Matches up with the same drop from 2003 all the way down to 2007. When the dollar bounces from 2007 into 2008, you will see oil crashes in 2007 to 2008. As the markets start to bounce back up, you will see that oil starts to rally back up. Now that I've shown you guys there's a direct correlation between the United States dollar and the prices of oil, now we're solely going to take a look at the oil chart. So now that you guys are caught up to speed on the relationship between the United States dollar and the price of oil, let's take a look at all this volume here. Understand that we had a bear market in oil in 2014 through 2015. We bottomed out in 16 and we started to bounce all the way into 2018. And then towards the end of 2018, we had a small bear market in oil that has since recovered into the beginning of course, end of 2018 into 2019. As these prices have gotten much lower, you can see the buying volume and just overall volume has increased significantly. In terms of trend, we are on the bullish side of the trend, or the dip buy phase, where you can see as prices move through to the highs, we pull down, and as prices get into the lower portion of this trend, we buy up. As they get into the higher portion of the trend, we pull back, and now we're on to the bounce phase. Now, if you think about it, oil has really just kind of come off a big bear market here, and then just a nice little recent bear market here. So the buying points have been very good here for the price of oil. Let's just consider for a moment that the same type of scenario plays out in Iraq with Iran. If in fact the United States does end up traveling over to Iran and we escalate just as we had in Iraq, you can almost be certain that the prices of oil are going to rise. How aggressive and or how much is always uncertain, but the likelihood that oil is going to increase over the course of the next couple years if problems do escalate in Iran is very high. The reason I showed you all that information earlier on the top exporters, importers, oil reserves, and so on is to give you guys an understanding of what is actually at force here. So right now the United States is the top oil producer, but they're not yet the top oil exporter. All countries purchase oil in United States dollars. The United States has the biggest supply, but not yet capitalizing on all of the demand. Because again, if we're the biggest oil producer, but not yet the biggest exporter, that means that we're not capitalizing on the demand that's out there in the world. Number 4, all countries purchase oil in the United States dollar. So if the United States dollar becomes cheaper, then the countries view the United States dollar is on sale, because if it's cheaper and all of the countries have to buy United States dollars in order to buy oil, they're first going to purchase United States dollars and then use that to purchase oil. So if the United States dollar is cheaper, that means other countries' money can afford more US dollar money, which then can afford more oil, essentially making oil cheaper at that time. So know that when the US dollars goes down and it becomes weaker, essentially oil is on sale for the rest of the world because they can afford more US dollar, which can then afford more oil, is essentially how that works. Now, if I was China, I would not want to purchase the currency that has 22 trillion in debt, but I still do because I need oil, and we can only buy oil in the United States dollars. So I guess I'll buy some of the US dollar you are selling, or a better word would be monopolizing. Number 7, whomever is the superpower of oil or controls oil ultimately controls the fate of the United States dollar and economy. All oil is traded in United States dollars. Wait, the country with 22 trillion in debt will use their currency to buy oil? Seems odd. I know. Iran has been a longtime enemy of the United States. Iran just found 53 billion barrels of oil recently. The United States Embassy was just attacked. United States troops shipping out to Iran. Iran is number 4 in oil exports. Iran is number 4 largest oil reserves, with the reserves numbers at 157 billion barrels currently, not including the new 53 billion barrels of oil they just found. The new oil field they found will put Iran 3rd place for potential oil reserves, just behind Saudi Arabia. Again, all oil is traded in United States dollar. The fate of the dollar and the United States economy rests solely on the strength of the United States dollar when the country itself has $22 trillion in debt. If we can control the oil, we can control the fate of the US dollar and the economy. All right, guys, now let's think logically for a second. So let's just say that the United States involvement over in Iran does grow and it becomes a bigger issue, or it escalates. And now let's say, for whatever reason, the United States involvement in Iran somehow slows the production of oil or slows the exports of oil in Iran. What do you think is going to happen? Well, all the customers that were going to Iran or getting oil from that location will now have to search elsewhere for oil. And what do you know? The United States just recently became one of the biggest oil producers. So currently we have all this oil, but we don't yet have the customers to fully take it off our hands. And if we did, we wouldn't be ranked number 8th in exports. So again, if somehow this involvement does slow some of that oil export and production in Iran, with Iran being number 4 for oil exports and number 4 for the largest oil reserves, there's a good chance that in fact, demand will increase for oil purchases through the United States and other neighboring countries that aren't having such problems with their oil fields in their country. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys liked the video. I hope you learned something new today. And keep in mind these oil markets. This right here could be a reason we are going to see these oil markets rip in the coming year. So that's all I have for you, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks again for tuning into the video. I hope you guys like it. I hope you learned something new. And as a reminder, make sure to hit the thumbs up button because it does take us a long time to do these videos. And that thumbs up button does help get this video out to more people and help grow our channel. So thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.